women's insulated metal water bottle. If I looked at the search term like women's pink rubber coated insulated water bottle, like that's my exact product. Now, the more specific you get to the product, the more specific the search is, the lower your search volume is going to be. So what we always look to do on product launches is like we try and find the intersection between good search volume and good to us is like maybe even a couple thousand, depending on the budget, that also have really good relevancy to the product. Because what you're trying to do is you want to get in front of your exact shoppers. So example would be insulated water bottle is going to be really expensive and not super specific to my product. Like it's kind of specific, but not really specific. I'm trying to say like, okay, where can I start getting super specific to my product, but it's going to have enough search volume that I can get the sales volume that I need. So I would focus more on that versus that I would looking at only search volume. A bit of a technical answer here is we don't quote move them, meaning we're not going to pause the existing keywords. We're simply going to launch them in another match type. Again, make sure to keep the bids lower. Amazon actually, if you read their recommendations, they recommend keeping bids lower on broad and phrase match, even lower than the exact match. When we would launch those is honestly really dependent performance of the account and availability of the budget. So if you launch a keyword in exact phrase and broad, so you have 50 keywords, right? And you launch them in exact phrase and broad, you technically have, 150 keywords that you've launched. And the potential of broad and phrase to spend could be quite high. So again, you just want to make sure it makes sense. It seems super simplistic, but if you are in a phase where you're struggling to control total ACoS and ACoS, to fix those two numbers, it really means that you have to lower down your ad spend with ideally little to no impact of the total sales or the ad sales in the case of ACoS. If you introduce a whole, again, those 50 keywords in exact phrase and broad, and those you probably need to test and optimize the bids, etc., you're introducing a lot of additional ad spend into the account. So you do want to be aware of that and be careful with that. So that's kind of a benchmark that we use. But overall, I would say, I don't know if I would have like a certain time frame or a frame which I would hold back on. It really is dependent on the performance of the account. Another good question, which best bid strategy for phrase and exacts when you move? So again, we don't really move them. We would simply launch them in addition. We like to separate them by campaign as well. Kind of gives us a little bit more control over, say, budgets for things. Now, as far as the bidding strategy, we're a super huge fan of using mainly dynamic down only. If it is a keyword that we want to ensure that we get impressions for, so for our launch keywords, for our main keywords, for anything we're trying to be aggressive with, we prefer a fixed bidding strategy. It's still going to be the same. It's still going to be pick highly relevant keywords. One other tip is pick keywords that fit within the budget of the account that you're launching. So for instance, if I have a couple $100 a day budget versus $50 a day budget, those launches are actually going to look a little bit different because I can't afford that many clicks on a $50 a day budget. Or if I had, a couple $100 or $1,000, I have a lot more room for clicks. So actually, you want budgets to play into your launch strategy. The other thing that you want to keep in mind, do not expect profitability on launch. This is a huge one. There's a lot of people that try and pull back and knee-jerk for profitability right out of the gate. That is not going to happen. The reason why it's not going to happen, and I'll tell you the numbers behind the numbers, is that ACoS is just going to be high on your product launches, and that is a function of two things. One, the aggressive cost per click you have to set to be able to get visibility in the beginning, and two, how low your product conversion rate is going to be, especially if you're launching without reviews. Those two things, once you start to be able to bring your cost per clicks down because you're getting momentum or you're optimizing your bids, and then two, once your product conversion rate starts to increase because you're getting those reviews, maybe you're optimizing your listing a little bit more because you've learned more about your target market, that is going to help bring down your target ACoS. So those things, again, conversion rates is going to be low, high cost per click. That's actually like the nuts and bolts of why your ads are not profitable, and it's almost unreasonable to expect profitability in the beginning. And that's actually why, if you've ever had a product where you're like, no matter what I do, I cannot seem to bring the ACoS down, I'm struggling here, it's a function of that your conversion rate is remaining low and it's not improving, and your cost per clicks are remaining high and you're not able to improve them due to the market or something else. So again, I would still say pick highly relevant keywords. Also make sure that whatever keywords that you have fits within your budget. Launch them. Aggressive, sponsored products, exact match, potentially sponsored brand video, exact match if you have the creative. Double down on that for a couple weeks and then start expanding. All right, cool. Yes. All right. We fixed the sound. We fixed the sound. All right. Someone said they don't have sound. Do we have it? Data 7. Hopefully we have sound now. If I'm looking at my settings, it's telling me the audio is working. But let me know. Let me know. Okay. Thank you. Yes, it's good. Awesome. I appreciate the call out. Yeah. So someone was saying favorite show on Thursdays. And I said it is my favorite as well. So you missed, because my audio was not working, you missed the part where I accidentally said Fridays, not Thursdays. Now Thursdays feel like Fridays because we have this particular segment. So already have a bunch of people watching. Super appreciate it. Also, shout out to our editor, Daisy, for that awesome edit to the intro. It's a little bit less boring now than just a 5-minute countdown timer you got to watch. Hopefully we can add a little value there. So look for us to be able to do more of that. But yeah, I'm super stoked, super excited to be back here on Thursdays. So this is an Ask Me Anything Amazon advertising segment. Let's pull that up here. So the format for this is you type your questions into the chat box. We pull it up and we give you an answer to your Amazon ad questions live. And we do our best to be strategic. So if I say anything or you have a follow-up question or anything I'm saying as I'm talking through this sparks interest, sparks an idea, makes you think of some other clarification you would like on my answer, make sure you leverage the chat box on whatever platform you are watching this on. So we stream this live on Facebook, LinkedIn, as well as YouTube. So highly recommend it, which also means that there is a replay available in whatever streaming platform you are watching on. Also, if you want to make sure that you can join all of our future lives, I recommend going to our website. If you go to resources and Q&A, which that little bubble thing is, you can't see the file, but you can see all of our times for our upcoming lives. We'll also put links to where you can watch everything if you want to follow the Google Calendar, get notifications. And if you keep not being able to catch these lives and you're like, I have an Amazon advertising question, I want to get it answered, feel free to leverage our form. We'll make sure, as well as if you want links to all the past lives where you can watch it, all the good stuff, all the good answers. We have resources for you. We've been putting out a lot of content. We've been putting out a lot of information on helping you run your Amazon advertising strategies more effectively to save you time and money. And best of all, we love to give advice that is strategic and specific to your exact situation, which is why these live Q&As are my absolute favorite. Cool. So it looks like we also have some comments rolling in. So I appreciate it. Again, use the chat. If you're just tuning in, use the chat to ask your Amazon advertising question. So here's our first one. When negating keywords and broaden phrase match for high ticket apparel. Interesting. High ticket apparel typically means lower conversion rates. How many clicks with no sales would you set as criteria for negating? And what would be the X clicks on weekly or monthly frame? That is a really amazing question. And so I'm going to pull that down. We're gonna get into your answer. Okay. So the thing with high ticket apparel, apparel tends to have typically lower conversion rates in general. So oftentimes you'll hear the benchmark of, say, a 10% conversion rates on just overall with Amazon. Other categories you could be looking at a 15 to 25% average conversion rates. However, in apparel, a 5% conversion rate is not particularly abnormal. And oftentimes, even the larger brands, you're getting into somewhere between a 3 and 2% conversion rates, which means that the amount of clicks on average that it takes to generate a sale is going to be much higher. A way that you can calculate how many clicks on average it's going to take to generate an order, you can take 1 divided by your product's conversion rate in the form of a decimal. So if I had a 2% conversion rate, I'm going to pull up my calculator, which you cannot see right here, but 1 divided by 0.02 is going to be 50. That means it takes 50 clicks on average to generate an order, which, as you can imagine, that can get quite expensive. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull up a resource and show you. This is one that I generated. So there's a couple ways to go about this. Number one, what you can do is wait till you get about roughly 50 clicks to generate before you negate something from your account. But as you can imagine, that can get quite expensive, right? So if I have $1 cost per click, that means I'm waiting $50 to begin to make a determination and negating. Now, the variable on if you're going to be able to stomach to wait that 50 clicks is going to be what is the cost per click you are paying. If you have, say, a higher cost per click, well, then that it's going to take a lot more ad spend to, again, be able to validate that you have, again, you can spend that much, right? So here's what I would think about. One, if I can validate that that is a completely irrelevant term to my product, I'm going to be fine with negating it sooner. Second option is also to manage based on your bid level or manage your bidding, meaning if you negate something, you are forever getting rid of that search term. If you're lowering the bid, you're simply going to be paying a lower cost per click on that search term. So that could be a much, maybe a little bit easier way to sort of not completely eliminate that entirely, but simply bring down how much you are paying for that particular search term. And then the other thing is I would look at longer date ranges here. So by default, the longest date range you can download in a search term report, I'm trying to remember, it's either a 60 or 90-day window. But I would start looking over longer date ranges because that's going to help you track sort of all of the accumulation of clicks. So Rosina, hopefully that was helpful. You got another question here. I'll make sure we get the answer. But if you have any follow-up questions on that answer, because you said what would be the X clicks on a weekly or monthly frame, I would just look at X clicks in total. Again, across a longer date range is how I would look at that. Your second question is, when optimizing campaigns running for over 6 months, which 5 Seller Central and Amazon ad reports would you regularly download, and whether monthly or weekly? That's a really good question as well. So what reports would I download and look at? I would mainly download a search term report. It would be what I was looking at. If you're familiar with bulk files, I would also be looking at bulk files because a bulk file is going to be a snapshot of your entire ad account, which is going to be very helpful. So I would mainly look at search term reports, and I would look at your bulk files. If you have a lot of variations, another really interesting type of report to download is going to be your advertised or your purchased products report. Those ones you would check maybe a little bit more periodically. And then another interesting one to look at is going to, again, this is if you want to get into day parting, but a campaign, you can only download this for sponsored products campaign report hourly data. It's kind of interesting to look at as well. You can create aggregates off of that and get some campaign level information that could sort of influence if you're doing any day parting activities, or better understand at which hours your advertising performs best. Now, I will let you know there are a couple reports that we download monthly and we archive for all of our brands. So those are all the search term reports. We download and archive a bulk file, and we download and archive the business reports, specifically business reports and sales summary under the ASIN, because that gives you a breakdown all the way to the SKU level. And then if you want to sort of create pivot tables or roll up to it, either ASIN or parent ASIN, you have the ability to be able to do that. Now, we do use a software that will give us things like inventory levels. We also can have look back windows and evaluate, say, hourly data, and there's a bunch of ways we can slice and dice it. So it hasn't become as necessary for us to like fully dive in and make sure that we're downloading everything, all the above. Because the other thing you might want to add into that is the inventory report. You might want a snapshot of, say, what was the inventory levels, and that can help you influence looking back over a period of time. The other thing that we'll do is every single month we're pulling the aggregate monthly data for total sales, units sold, unit session percentage. We also like to look at in the business reports, there's something that is the average parent items that, again, can give you some context if there's more products or less products, products went out of stock, etc. That can be very helpful. We'll also download all of the advertising data, so ad sales, ad spend. Then we're downloading clicks, impressions, and orders. And off of those, you can calculate the ad conversion rate, the ad cost per click, click-through rates, all of that, total ACoS, and ad sale percentage, and that's archived in a sheet. Again, we have ways that we can pull a software and look at this. We just happen to like being able to evaluate the month-over-month views. Over minimum, you can pull it as a 2-year period, which is helpful to like get all of that out of there and then update it every month. So hopefully that was helpful. Again, longer answer, but I appreciate the question. Joseph in with another question. Oh, I told you I was going to pull up the thing on ACoS and cost per click. Give me a second. I'll pull that one up. But Joseph, you're saying, hi, when optimizing bid, is there a right or wrong way regarding going based on bid versus cost per click? I've been doing based on bids for many years, and I'm thinking I should switch. Good question. So Joseph, what I would say is whatever's going to get you the best performance. And so we have an internal bid algorithm, and the way that we built it out is looking at the different scenarios in which we were making different decisions and then updating our algorithm to, in our opinion, get us the best case scenario for that very specific case. So what I would say is that if you're optimizing based on your bid, then potentially, and this is mainly in the case of lowering your bids, then you may not be lowering your bids enough in specific scenarios. So a classic example would be, what's often referred to as cutting bleeders, which means if things have high volumes of clicks, we want to be able to lower the bids. Sometimes, so for example, if your bid was $2 and your cost per click was, say, 50 cents, right? And we had 30 clicks and no sales. And you're like, okay, so we need to lower the bid here, right? So even if you cut that bid down by $1, we're taking it from $1 or from $2 to $1. $1 is still significantly higher than my cost per click of 50 cents. So in theory, I would still continue to pay that 50 cents cost per click, which may not reduce my ad spend on that specific target. And that is where the argument for adjusting based on cost per click comes in. However, I did for a time, and this was a couple years back, test optimizing based on the cost per click for targets that were performing well. So for example, same 50 cents cost per click, $2 bid. If maybe we're saying, oh, we want to increase this bid, right? If we're going off of the cost per click, this is a well-performing target. Maybe I want to increase this bid by 10 cents. If I increased it based on my cost per click, I'm now putting my bid at 60 cents versus where it was $2 before. And I might start reducing visibility on my main targets in that case. So in that scenario, it probably doesn't make sense to adjust based on my cost per click. So I'm kind of giving you this setting here because there's one more thing you want to take into account, which is placement percentages. And then I'll wrap it up with how would I recommend going about it. Okay. So the other thing that you need to keep in mind is the introduction of placement percentages or dynamic up and down bidding. In these cases, oftentimes your cost per click is going to be greater than your bid. And so if you're adjusting off your cost per click, you might actually be increasing your bid when you want to decrease it. So let's flip flop it, right? Let's say we had a 50% or 50 cent bid and we ended up with a $2 cost per click because we had an increase of a placement percentage on there. Well, if we wanted to say lower our bid, if we were basing it on the bid and that 50 cents, we would be lowering it. And on the flip side, if we then said, oh, I need to lower, like say we were just lowering it 10 cents, say we're going to lower it 10 cents. Well, in this case, my new bid, if I'm going off my cost per click, is going to be $1.80, which is actually increasing from where my 50-cent bid was significantly. And so we're actually increasing a bid that has a variable on it that already isn't performing. And so you can end up with some really bad performing targets in that case. So with that, what do you do? I would recommend that for anything that you want to significantly lower, I would go off the cost per click. That being said, you do want to make sure that you have a cross check in there for anything with the placement percentage, because if it has the placement percentages, you're going to want to base your adjustment off of your bid, not your cost per click, if the cost per click is greater than the bid. Hopefully that makes sense. If you want to adjust a target that you want to be quite sensitive of, meaning if it's a main keyword, is something driving a lot of sales, we base our bid adjustment is taking into account the bid, not necessarily the cost per click. And that's how we go about it. It's a little bit more advanced. I would say if I had to pick one of two, clicks with no sales, go off the cost per click, adjusting for placement percentages. Everything else, you're probably good to continue as you are. So hopefully that was helpful. That was a really, really good question. All right, JC. I view sponsored display VCPM on the account I'm handling. Organic sales is going down. I turn off the VCPM. What is your recommendation next step to make the organic sales go up? Good question. So there's two things here. I am not necessarily convinced that the VCPM was the reason your organic sales were going down. It could have been, it could have not been. So for those unaware, VCPM is where you are paying per impressions. You are not paying for the typical Amazon advertising, which is a cost per click model, which means you're paying for every single click. You're simply in the VCPM model paying for somebody to actually just see the ad. And the definition of seeing the ad is I think they have to see 50% of the ad for, I think it's 1 second. I really should go back and read the documentation. But as you can imagine, that's like they don't have to see it that much. And so what I would say, one, if you are going to run a VCPM model, highly recommend adjusting your bids using bulk files. If you pull a bulk file, this sponsored display ads, VCPM model, the sales are actually click attribution sales. They're not view attribution sales. So you'll actually see like the actual number of sales on a targeting level that converted based on somebody actually clicking on your ad, not viewing your ad. That is the only place that I'm aware that you can actually get click attribution on a per target level outside of the API. So I would recommend, first off, if anyone who's hearing this and running a VCPM model, I would recommend using bulk files to adjust your bidding there. And to your other question of how do you fix organic sales, rank better. Two ways you could do it. You increase your ranking, decrease your ad sales, or decrease, basically how many sales are being triggered through ads.
The second one, decreasing how many sales are being triggered through ads. You want to be really, really careful, because if you pull back too much, then that also can hurt your rankings, which actually will make you go in the opposite direction of your organic orders. So I would go here. I would identify a select number of targets that you need to push to, when I say push, bid higher on, spend more on, that will help increase your organic ranking. And then push those. Make sure you watch your rankings and also watch total sales. Ideally, what will happen is that your ad sales will lead to better ranking, will lead to better total sales. So you're looking for increases in ranking, and then you're validating that that's working through tracking increases in total sales. That's what you're doing. Oh, I love this one from Joseph. What's a healthy or common ad sale percentage and ad sales divided by all sales? Yes, ad sale percentage is a great way to get an idea of your organic to ad sales ratios, meaning what percentage of my total sales are coming from ads. The easiest way I found to calculate this is to take your ad sales and you divide it by your total sales, which is what Joseph is saying here in this last half of the question. And what is a healthy or common? So I would say common is probably going to be closer to 50% these days, as much as that's going to make a lot of people cringe listening to this. I can't believe 50% of total sales coming from ads. Yes, that's probably about average these days. That comes mainly from Amazon taking away more organic spots on search pages, if we're being frank. So it has to do with the function and the maturing of the platform and how Amazon is going, not necessarily that you are doing something wrong as a seller. Now, the other thing that I will say to this is that treat your ad sale percentage as a barometer to the health of your account. For example, I've talked to some sellers that are pushing 70%, 60 to 70% of their total sales being driven from ads. However, their total ACoS numbers are like 7%, which is very healthy. I mean, I think a lot of people would kill for a 7% total ACoS numbers. And so in that case, if you knee-jerk reaction, autocorrect, pull back on a lot of ads from your ad sale percentage because you're so worried that the ad sale percentage is high, where like total sales and profitability is really healthy. You want to make sure that you're looking at your ad sale percentage in context. Now, in this case, like in that example I shared, if I said, wow, the sales are really good, total ACoS is crushing it, ad sale percentage is pretty high, most likely there's probably some places we can pull back on the advertising and still maintain our organic ranking. So let me go see if I can identify those and run some tests in the account, right? That's how I would approach it. So that's like a barometer, me kind of reading the tea leaves and trying to figure out how I can, improve the account. That would be my workflow. But I would not be like, oh my gosh, this is way too high. Turn off a whole bunch of ads and then screw up, say, my total sales volume. So you want to treat it as a barometer. Two things. Cool. Joseph, he said, great explanation on the cost per click versus the bid. Is a search term report that can be included in the bulk files the same as the exact report as I'm doing in sponsored product ads report? Yes, it absolutely is. And if I can pull it up here, let's see. Well, I've been putting out a lot of content in bulk files, man. I gotta find the right one because I did. Oh, here we go. I'm gonna show it right here. There's this how to add negatives with bulk files. This video here. So add thousands of negative keywords in minutes. Free template. So if you're looking at pulling bulk file search term reports, I would recommend looking at that video. I also go through how to use the search term reports to add negatives at scale using bulk files. Recommend checking that out, Joseph. And also the benefit of doing the bulk files is you can download a sponsored brands and a sponsored product search term report in one download instead of having to download two reports, which can be very beneficial. Cool. I'm trying to still see. I know I had told somebody I would look at. Trying to find that shared. For some reason I can't find it. That's driving me crazy. It's gonna drive me crazy. I was trying to find. You can actually, the first question that was asking about like how many clicks and what to look at. There actually is a way that you can forecast kind of what your bid needs to be able to calculate that you can hit like whatever a cost at that cost per click. Sometimes you can reverse engineer that, but for some reason I can't find my sheet that I used to forecast on that. So, all right, answer that question. All right. Data 7 says lower the bid to 2 cents and give a radical 1,000% increase on top of search. Yeah, that can work sometimes. Those are really fun campaigns to test. However, if you're going after ranking, that's not a good ranking campaign. I will say that. Although, yes, we do have a lot of those running. There's some fun stuff you can do with placement percentages. If you want me to go into the nuts and bolts of why those don't make good ranking campaigns, I actually have a newsletter that I put out on that, so we can go over that. All right. Lena says, read my new keyword criteria in auto campaigns. Can't lower the bids. I'm not a pro, but you're learning and you're here and you're asking questions. You're going to be a pro in no time. Trust me. But would shifting those tombs to a parallel new auto campaign with lower bids be advisable instead of just negating? Yes, that's a really good test. So see, you're already thinking like a strategist. Good work. I would say, I mean, you can lower bids in the auto campaign. You can. But yes, another thing is to run another campaign. You could do a new auto campaign, or you can also dabble in your manual campaigns as well. And then set those at lower bids is another good strategy. You're thinking like a strategist. All right. Already went over Joseph's question, which we're Rick rolling along. We're about 30 minutes in. And I am loving it. So again, for anyone just joining, hey, my name is Elizabeth Greene, co-founder of Junglr. We're doing an Ask Junglr segment right now, where you can enter your Amazon ad questions into the chat and get a real live answer that is specific to your exact scenario, which is what we're looking to do here at Junglr. Not just give you guys general answers, but we like to get really strategic with what we're doing in our advertising. All right. Rosina says, in one Amazon UK account, I'm selling only one SKU. Campaign manager shows $1,100 is 30-day ad spend, but SK SKU economics shows $1,500 as per fee for the same period. How do I audit which is correct? So if you're, I would trust Campaign Manager for your ad spend. Let's see, Seller Center SKU economics shows $1,500 as per SP fee for the same period. Yeah, you're trying to think. I think you get auto charged every $500 of ad spend in the beginning. So like the fees that come out of your account and like the fees that are there are some interesting dynamics in the report. So here's a classic example, right? Business reports. Business reports will tell you the sales that happen the day that transaction is enacted. So if I go to Amazon as a shopper right now, I want to purchase a product, bing, done, add to cart, ship it to me. That transaction is going to show up in that seller's business report as the day that I bought the product. However, if they go into their like accounting section of their reports, and they look at when they actually when that accounting records the sale, they're probably not actually going to see that transaction till maybe a day later. And the reason why is because you don't actually get paid as a seller until that product ships. So what happens if I purchase the product on the last day of the month and then the product ships out the next month. That transaction inside of business reports is going to be recorded again within that first month. And then if we go into accounting, we're actually going to see that transaction recorded the next month. So you end up with these weird dynamics of, it's not like either report is wrong necessarily. It's just, how is the data calculated? And if it's calculated like it has a slightly different attribution model, or all kinds of things, you're going to see some like interesting nuances between the reports, which is going to lead you to believe that one is wrong. Now, if it's inside of, let me see, you just had another one. So SKU economics includes UK 20% VAT on spend also, but 500 of 1,000 is not 20%. Correct. So SKU economics, does that also show your like product fees as well? Because it might be factoring in Amazon fees and things. I'm not entirely sure. That would be something, if you really wanted to know, I would recommend opening a seller support ticket. I know that's not the funnest thing in the world, but basically you're just like, hey, how is this calculated? Can you help me understand these? It might take you a little bit to get the answer, but I would ask. And like I said, it really oftentimes has to do with like how each report is calculating the data. What's the attribution model? What date ranges are they looking at? All those kind of things. That's where you end up with like the weirdness. Again, it's not like one is wrong. It's just calculated different. All right. Joseph, would you say that in general, we should up bids and budgets prior to an unexpected hike in sales, such as holiday, and decrease them after the event? Ooh, great question. I actually did an entire presentation. Maybe I should do a webinar. Dude, I should do a webinar on this. For the Kevin King's $1 billion Seller Summit. And we were talking about specifically seasonality in advertising, because there's one thing that we found that works really, really well. And I'm going to click view link. I'm gonna pull this up for you and see if I can. We'll do a quick presentation. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. It's probably about a 30-minute presentation. But the one thing that we found is that, so this is the problem with seasonality, right? You got a feast or famine, and you got the peak shopper thing. And so you want to be well ranked here. However, right afterwards, consumer behavior, things just absolutely drop off a cliff. So that's what you're trying to negate. So the idea that most people have, and what you're asking about, is, should I push for rankings prior to, right? So should I be making sure that I'm well ranked? The idea is that if you are at the top of the mountain, if you are ranked, then you are going to find, you're going to be there when the shopper frenzy happens, when everyone's looking to purchase products. In theory, this is great. However, what we discovered is that doing it too early will absolutely crush your margins. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Again, this is us going through strategy. So basically what we did, we ramped up spend prior to, and we absolutely crushed it out of the gate. Again, this is a bit of a case study here. And I don't know if you can see this, but SKU margins, when we ramped up too soon, we're at a 6.7%, which is not that great, especially when you're looking at about 130K of sales. Good sales, not great margin. So what we did is we noticed that because your total A cost is your ad spend divided by your total sales, if you push ad spend sooner, then your total sales are going to increase, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because the consumer market just they're not purchasing right now. If you start overspending, your days of peak seasonality, so where all the shopper frenzy is, if you look at this is our total A cost right here. This is great, and this is lowering, and this was highly profitable. But when we zoomed out across the entire date range of what we're spending, I don't want to say unprofitable. We didn't lose. I mean, this was a launch during a peak season with aggressive spend. So it's not like we lost money, but it just wasn't the volumes that we wanted it to do. And so what we figured out is that like our sales trends, despite how high we pushed our spend, didn't really outpace what was happening with the market. And you can look at the search volume history of this. Our sales ramped up right with the search volume. And so what we did is we pivoted to mirroring our ad spend pushes with, wait, no, this is the other, because we did really good about dropping off spend. So what we did is we mirrored our ad spend pushes with the market. Now you got it. I mean, there's a whole strategy behind this. If anyone wants it, let me know in the comments. I'll do a webinar on this whole presentation because it's pretty bomb. And I give like step-by-step instructions for like how to go about the strategy, because the first 3 days of this strategy are really intense. You're checking the account twice and you're making adjustments every single day for the first 3 days. So it's an intense strategy. But what we found is that if we can hit this, we went from doing a 6% margin to a 2.89% margin on, looks like we're close to $1 million of sales off of this. As you can imagine, made the client much happier. And then so much better here. And then we actually in February, so that first screenshot of the 6 point, whatever it was, margins in February were, again for Valentine's Day. So then 2024 Valentine's Day, we did 2.69% margins again. And this one was much higher. We're looking at about 700K of sales, a little bit more. So that, if you want to know strategy, identifying your top keywords, making sure that you have ample budgets. You do want to validate which keywords are going to work for you. And then what you're doing is you're ramping up your bids and you're ramping up your budgets in line with the changes in consumer behavior, mainly looking to capture on increases in conversion rates and push yourself. It's that strategy is how you absolutely achieve insane sales with good margins. I will tell you, it's not for the faint of heart. It's not for the faint of heart. You got to know what you're doing. But if you can do it, if you can hit it right, the results are fantastic. And we've been replicating this across all of our accounts, and it's been amazing. Shout out to one of my account managers, Rachel, for helping develop this strategy. There are better brains than I on our account management team. And I'm really excited for what we're doing. Cool. Yeah. So this is the one we just pulled up. So Scuba Economics. Yeah. I would reach out to seller support on that one. Yeah. Joseph says, does the API get more info or functionality than bulk files? Yes. Yes. There are additional data points that are available in the API that are not available anywhere else. I would have to ask my developer as to what those specifically are. So if you have any interest, you can actually go and read the API documentation. You don't need to have API access to read the documentation. So if you had an extra couple minutes and you wanted to kind of like snoop as to what was available, I would recommend just peeking on that and seeing what's available. All right, Colin. Hey, Elizabeth. Hey, what's up? What are some of the best practices when creating your first ranking campaign? Function is to boost organic ranking via paid ads. Great question. You want to set these up exact match, sponsored products, high bids is what you're looking to do. That's how you run it. You can add in maybe a sponsored brands video ad if you would like. What we have observed that if you're going after rankings, sponsored product ads by far have the biggest impact on ranking. And whenever I say that, I always have to like asterisk, like there's nothing wrong with sponsored brand ads and there's nothing wrong with sponsored display ads. And those ones do add cumulatively to your sales. And there's great validity in running those. They do get you product placements. You can't get outside of that. I mean, there's plenty of potential when it comes to cross-selling. I don't want anyone to misconstrue me saying that to say, don't worry about the other ad types, don't run them. It's not the case. But that being said, if what you're asking me about is ranking, sponsored products all day long. Goal on ranking is to be able to get a higher sales velocity than your competition for an extended period of time through a single shopper search. So I'll hear from sellers sometimes like, oh, I have higher sales than them. How are they outranking me? It's because they're getting more sales through that like specific shopper search. So what you're looking to do is your advertising sales will add to your sum total of sales. Again, because we're using exact match to target a very specific shopper search. And then we can help influence the increase in sales. So the thing you have to figure out when you're determining which ranking keywords I'm going to go after is, one, are these keywords that I can get good conversions on? You can validate this through search query reports. If you have no data whatsoever, I would validate this or try and like pre-validate this by seeing what targets or keywords are highly relevant to my product. Highly relevant being specifically to describe the product. When you're doing keyword research, you're looking for the intersection of what terms are specific to my product and specifically describe my product, and then which terms have a good enough search volume, because what you'll find is the more specific the search term, typically speaking, the lower your search volume is for it. So the less shoppers bothering to type in like 8 different words in that specific order to find that product. And so you just want to like make good decisions there, because you want enough volume that you're going to be able to make a dent in whatever sales goals you have. And then the other thing that you need to keep in mind in relation to just like, can I convert here, is going to be how much do I have to pay to convert? So what is the cost per click? So for example, supplements, it's not uncommon to have to pay like $15 cost per click on certain things, which is why that category can get so cutthroat. So if you're going after main keywords and you're having to pay say $10 cost per click on that one keyword, well, if my ranking goals mean I have to get a large volume of sales through that specific shopper search, and for every single one of those clicks I'm gonna have to be paying $10, but because I need a high volume of sales, I'm gonna have to spend an exorbitant amount of budget to rank on that keyword. It's just not going to make sense, not necessarily because I can't rank. It doesn't make sense for me as a business because I can't afford that much ad spend on that specific search term. So you want to be thinking about those two things. That's how to build out the campaign. Very simple. Sponsor product, exact match, leverage high bids. Don't try and do the low bid, high placement percentage. That can work. That's not going to give you the volume of impressions you need on that search. So do that. Cool. Tom says, hey, Liz. Hello, Tom. Have you ever heard of a software data dive? Yes. It is created by Brandon Young. Just wondering if you utilize the software for conversions and deep dives. I did utilize it when it first came out. I think it's a good software. I've heard a lot of people say really good things about it. I know some really amazing people who use it on the daily. I do think it is a good software. We just happen to have internal processes that we're comfortable with that get, my personal opinion, just as good results, although those are not available publicly. So yeah, I would recommend the tool. Joseph, does sponsor display help with organic in the same way as sponsored products? To be honest, I don't know. It might, is what I would say. The thing is that sponsored display ads don't typically have really high volumes in terms of sales. Like they can, but on average, they tend to get a little bit lower sales volume. And if ranking is determined a lot by sales volume, then my gut instinct says no. That being said, there's really honestly no clear-cut way to test this. So, but a really good question. Honestly, a really good question. Oh, this is a good one. Rosanna, when running multiple sponsored product campaigns for 200 ASINs, complexity and scale. One of our favorite / not so favorite things to work with because it can get a little bit intense. Is there a tool that lists sponsored product campaign names in columns and ASIN numbers, ad runs in rows? So you're wanting to find out a list of the sponsored product campaigns that and the ASINs that are associated with them. Sounds like. So there is a tool Unfortunately, it's one that we built because I wanted this specific information as well. It's not one that's available to the public, but that is kind of one of the most difficult things to get is, okay, so I know I want to do with this product, and I know I have this in my ad structure, but like connecting product performance to ad performance. And then in addition to, so that's not too hard, right? There are tools, one that we use, KPOC, and we love KAPOQ, which will give us a breakdown on a SKU level of the sales performance and the ad performance on that particular SKU. And then you can go and you can evaluate that. These are the things I need to improve on. These are the things that are running well. Maybe I need to capitalize on. The problem with even that level of analysis, which is really helpful, is, okay, if I know I need to improve on this product, where in my ad structure is this product, and how can I fix it? Right? What do I do about it? How do I go and improve it inside of my ad structure? That connection point, I don't think anyone has figured out well, which is why we built an internal tool to help us do that, honestly. But there's maybe a couple of things you can do. So one thing you can do is you can download an advertised product report for sponsored product ads. This will list the ASINs that are advertised in that particular campaign. Actually, no, there's a product tab as well. Okay, so the ways you would find this, right? You're not going to get a list of, no, the advertised product report, you should be able to do it. So I would download an advertised product report. I would run a pivot table off of the advertised ASINs, and then you should be able to get a list of the campaign names. You can run that pivot table, and that should give you a list of all of the campaigns. And if you wanted to add in more columns to that table, you could add in like the actual performance of that product in every single one of those campaigns. That could be helpful. The thing that you won't have in that case is you will not be able to see a product if it has not gotten a click in whatever date range it is. Or no, those appear if they get impressions. So it has to at least have had one impression in the date range of the report for you to be able to do that. The other way that you can check this, now this is, again, you can't really download everything. It's a little bit tedious, but you can, if you wanted to like spot check the individual products, what you can do is you can go into the product tab that's now available inside of your advertising console. You can find that ASIN, and then there's a drop down menu, so you can click it, it'll drop down and it'll give you a list of all the campaigns that product is in, which can be helpful. But unfortunately, what I found is if you download that report, it doesn't like give you like the information is there with what campaigns it's in, but it doesn't like give you a list of them. It's honestly kind of dumb the way that they did that. I wish there was a way that was all included in the download. It's not. But if you wanted to spot check a specific ASIN, you could do it that way. So hopefully that helps. And that was a long-winded answer. Cool. Sam has a question. Use top of search modifiers? Yes. Or do you use higher bids to get top of search placement? Yes. I would say if we're trying to get top of search placement, I would lean more heavily on the bids to get there. Let me share a tab. This is a newsletter, which, by the way, if you didn't know, we're putting out a newsletter every single week. And that is information that I am not sharing anywhere else other than like to pop it open on these lives. And it's tactical, to the point, actionable on a very specific subject. It's not like a bunch of random topics and things. So I try and make it tactical and valuable. But so basically, I got this question, and my the reason why I would lean on my bids more is a $5 bid is going to be a $5 bid in every single ad auction. A $1 bid with a 400% top of search multiplier will only be a $5 bid in some of the auctions. Meaning your bid is the main determinant as to what, like it's the primary determinant as to what ad auctions you're going to enter into, along with things like like relevancy of keywords and all that other stuff. There's a couple other checks. That's why you don't see like a bunch of socks being advertised on shoe keywords, even though maybe you could put in a high enough bid and try and get there. Amazon's not going to let that happen because they're not interested in a poor shopper experience. So there's other things that go into the bid algorithms, but a main one, of course, is going to be your bid. And so what happens is that, again, if you want a high volume of impressions, because that $1 bid with a high top of search is not going to be a high bid in all of the auctions that you enter in. It's kind of like a secondary determinant. You're just not going to get the volume of impressions you would like. So it can work sometimes because you might find that you get a little bit better performance in terms of ACoS if you do low bid and high top of search. But if you're going specifically after just volumes for ranking, it's not going to be the best structure in terms of ranking campaigns. That being said, we do use top of search modifiers. We do use placement modifiers. I also just put out another newsletter going through that extensively this last Tuesday, I believe. What I would say there is that one, we use it as sort of like a modifier, a boost or an improvement on something that's already working. I'm not a huge fan of like preemptively adding a whole bunch of placement adjustments to things. I find that sometimes that stuff can really spin out of control fast because it can like really elevate your cost per clicks. And the other thing you want to be careful of is what sort of match types are in that campaign. For example, if you put a top of search modifier on an auto campaign, there might be some really interesting strategies you can pull out for doing that. That being said, you're putting a top of search modifier on all of the potential search terms that those keywords trigger, as well as all of the keywords that are being advertised in that campaign, which can be okay sometimes and oftentimes can make you pay exorbitant cost per clicks on things that do not make sense to do so. So I would say one, use them with intentionality. And if you're trying to get majority of impressions, focus on higher bids to do so. Cool. That was a great question though. Cool. So we have a question on if we've tested sponsor brands vertical video creatives. Minimally, not enough to share insights though. I've been hearing from other people in the industry that they get really good. And we had some clients who had sort of like lifestyle TikTok style videos anyways. And unfortunately we like had to get those edited to fit Amazon's like original criteria, horizontal criteria. And now that we have vertical videos, we're testing those, but again, not at high volumes because not all of our brands have those, unfortunately. All right, we got a couple more questions left and a couple more minutes. So I'm going to answer these last questions and they're going to wrap it up. So let's go. Joseph said, since Amazon Auto completes a search when shopper starts typing, and I think a large percentage of searches is done this way, should start looking at long tail keyword differently while doing keyword research. I would look at autocomplete. Yes, you are thinking like a strategist. Love it, love it, love it. Yes, I have seen, and on the flip side, you will find that there are sometimes that there are long tail search terms that are like absolutely crushing it. I had this in one account where I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. This is like the best search term. And like overnight, we went to like no impressions. Like what? No, like this was absolutely crushing it. What in the world went wrong? And when I went and investigated it, I realized that like, oh, this long, because it was a very long tail search. It was like 5 or 6 words and very, very specific. As soon as that search dropped out of the autocomplete, impressions fell off the map. They were gone. And so what we did is we evaluated the autocompletes and then realized that, oh, there's something else that popped back into the autocomplete search. And so we started advertising on that one autocomplete, and, you know, we were able to like shift impressions and still gain momentum there. So I would say, yes, you are correct. Now that search volume should also be caught by the tools, but the tools aren't really updated in real time as far as like updating, you know, like their like the search volume. And so I would, long story short, yes, I would start looking at Amazon's autocomplete as a method for keyword research. Good question. Is there actual reason or strategy why would you use 2 cents with 1,000 top of search strategy you referred to before, or is it mainly to test and just get low cost per click keywords? Yeah, so the strategy here is that if you can validate the top of search works the best for your product, then the idea was I want to only get top of search impressions. So if I lower my bids so low that it basically doesn't enter any more ad auctions, and then the thought was if I can increase my top of search so high, then I'm only going to be pushing myself into those top of search auctions. What we found is because the lower bid sort of eliminates you from a decent amount of like ad auctions, you just didn't end up getting as much volume because ideally like top of search is going to have the most bid auctions happening because that's like the most prominent search. So you would think you would still generate high volumes of impressions. What we found out is that you can sometimes, but it's not a bulletproof solution, and oftentimes does not have the impressions needed, nor the number of clicks, nor the number of conversions needed to make a dent in ranking, which is why when I say you're setting up ranking campaigns, that's not going to be a good viable strategy. I actually audited an account where they were really struggling to rank the products. So like, we're struggling to rank the products. We can't figure this out. And I was looking at the account. And I'm like, well, you guys, you have all your ranking campaigns set up, right? It's the specific keywords I would look at. It's the sponsored products. You're doing an exact match. Like, all things are right. How come they're struggling to rank? And then I looked at their bids and I looked at their top of searchers, said, oh, they're running this strategy. The volumes just aren't enough for them to be able to make movement here. And that was actually the reason they were struggling to rank. So I've seen the validation enough, seen it validated in enough accounts just to know that, again, if you're going after ranking. Now, if you're going after maybe a little bit more profitability, lower cost, I think it makes for a good test campaign. But I would treat it like a secondary interesting test versus a main strategy. That's how we go about it. All right. Read Sam's top of search query. Top of search gets more higher conversions in my account. Yes, so that was Sam's question is, do you use top of search modifiers? Do you use higher gives to get top of placement? Yeah, a lot of times top of search converts really, really well. So again, use placement percentages or top of search modifiers as an augmentation to improve a performance. Again, I wouldn't recommend using it as a primary strategy, but Rosina, that is a really good call out. And so hopefully you got something from the conversation on placement percentages. Awesome. You guys are so cool. I appreciate everyone watching. I always appreciate everyone showing up. The questions these last couple weeks have been absolutely fire, and I appreciate them. They're some amazing questions being asked. Hopefully I gave some pretty good answers to them. Hopefully you got a lot out of watching this segment, and you have a much better, more in-depth and tactical understanding of how to improve your Amazon advertising, because I want you guys to be able to hit that growth at scale and leverage ads to be able to grow profitably. So again, thank you all for tuning in. If you guys want to make sure that you don't miss out on another one of these, I would highly suggest looking at the website, tracking, following us on YouTube or whatever our social channels are that you're watching this. And as always, I will see you guys next week. I really appreciate it.